2025 meeting to order. And indication of the pledge will be by Commissioner Bill Waller.
Okay. If you would like to join me, please bow your heads. Father, we come to you with thankful hearts, thankful for the blessings that you show us each and every day. We thank you for the country we live in. We thank you for the state that we live in. And we just ask that you would guide and direct us as commissioners to make good, solid decisions for Stanley County and Stanley County citizens. Just be with those that are homeless. And Lord, we just pray that if we know who they are, that we will reach out and help. And just forgive us when we fail you. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Need to approve the agenda of this meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. And the first thing on our agenda is public comments, and I didn't have anybody sign up. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to speak to us about anything? Haven't seen no one speak to us. And number 2 on the agenda is the National Future Business Leaders of America, the FBLA College Gate Week Proclamation. And the presenter is Mr. Tim Carabet. Is that right?
Yep.
Would you come up and make your presentation? I forgot to mention that Ms. Lanny Pope, the vice president, you're the president, right, Tim?
Yeah, I believe so.
And the SAC graduate and the Wingate University students. Thank you.
Good
Go ahead.
evening. Throughout February, chapters at colleges across the country will be celebrating National FBLA Month. Future Business Leaders of America is the premier national organization for college students interested in developing skills in business leadership and professionalism. I am Tim Carabet, and it is my honor to serve as chapter president this year. 2024 to 25 has been a particularly special year for the Stanley Community College FBLA Collegiate Chapter. We just finished celebrating our 50th anniversary. The chapter was founded in 1974. That year, Stanley Technical Institute, as we were then, attended its first state leadership conference and competitive events. An SCC student won the State Typing 1 event and was the first student to attend a national conference held that year in Miami Beach. This past June, we had 7 delegates who attended the national conference in Orlando, including Laney Pope, who had just been elected as State Vice President of Communications.
The conference was presided over by Stanley's Toby Neal, the first national president from North Carolina and the first to serve while a community college student. At the opening session, Toby had the honor of doing a surprise recognition of our advisor, Mr. Hazlett, commemorating his 50th year as an FBLAC advisor at Stanley Community College. Stanley was named as a National Gold Seal chapter, and at the award ceremony, we were on stage for several awards, including first place in the nation in the hospitality management event for the SCC team of Gage Barrier and Samantha House. We appreciate the commissioners recognizing the contributions of the chapter to the business, government, and civic areas of Stanley County. Former members are in leadership roles in all of these areas, and they credit their involvement as part of their success.
I would like to introduce other chapter members with me tonight. Eowyn Allen, Riley Hill, and Laney Pope, and our advisor, Mr. Dan Hazlett. Thank you for signing the proclamation recognizing the goals of the organization, the history of the Stanley Community College chapter, and the observance of National FBLA Month.
Is your little speaker light on up there? I could hardly,
Mine?
well, base of it, it should be.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay,
on.
so, thank you.
Usually I'm loud enough, but
All right, thank you for that. The FBLA College Gate Month, February 2025, Future Business Leaders of American College Gate. We got the proclamation here. And I'd like to,
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion, we approve the proclamation and tell you folks that are here tonight, the Stanley Community College, I know, has always done a very good job on this particular chapter. And you folks being active, it's helping you form your future. And I appreciate you all being here. And that's a motion to
that's a
approve
motion.
it.
Do I have a
Sorry.
second? Second by Mr. Crump. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you all, appreciate you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, third on the agenda is a voluntary agricultural district program applications, and the presenter is Clint Brooks, the Soil and Water Conservation Director.
Evening, Commissioners. How are you all? So I have two applications for the Voluntary Ag District. And just as a reminder, and I plan on doing maybe a more at length with new commissioner, new faces, presentation to the board of what the Voluntary Ag District is. But in short, what this does is this is a voluntary program that farmers, i.e. landowners, can come and voluntarily enroll their land into this agricultural district. What this does is sort of provide some level of protection for those landowners, farmers, against nuisance calls, developing pressures and all that. So as the county, more and more people are moving in, they're building next to chicken houses or row crop fields, and they don't quite understand that relationship, being that Stanley County is historically agriculture. So this allows farmers to, from the get-go, proclamate their land as these are working agricultural lands. So that's what the Voluntary Ag District does in short. So we have two applications tonight. One of the applications comes in at about 277.3 acres. And this is sort of a conglomerate of different parcels put together near the Bear Creek Church Road area. And then the second application we have is, let's see here, off of Ellen Road in Albemarle, and that application comes in at 286.59 acres.
And that was Shane Poplin.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay,
Shane Poplin and Kyle Allman.
Kyle Altman.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, we have before us these two tracts of land introduced into the voluntary ag program. What's the pleasure of the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve Kyle Allman and Shane into the Voluntary Ag District. Please.
And I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. What's the pleasure? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate it.
Okay, next up is utilities, budget amendment for the additional 1-inch water meter purchases, and the presenter is Dwayne Wingo.
Thank you, Chairman Barbie, Commissioners. First is, action item 4409, the budget amendment for additional 1-inch meter purchases. Stanley County Utility Department is requesting a budget amendment for the February 17th, 2025 meeting to procure 60 additional 1-inch meters and ancillary parts for the ongoing meter changeout project and new commercial service taps. During our meter changeout project that we initiated a couple of years ago, we've encountered more 1-inch meters in older parts of the system of our water distribution lines than was initially estimated. We've received quotes from Core and Main totaling $33,391.49 for the necessary meters and parts. Currently, our meter tap expense account is at $6,674.89. However, as we do every year, we budget money into this expense account to hopefully where the revenues will exceed the expenses, and then before the end of the year, we're capable of taking that excess revenue and moving it back into the expense account to purchase more meters. In this account, we have $31,243. To cover the remaining cost, we're proposing to transfer this excess revenue from the meter set revenue account to the meter tap expense account, and this transfer will ensure that we can complete the procurement of the 1-inch meters and related fittings. We are recommending approval of Budget Amendment 2025-56 for this procurement.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure I understand. Now, these are remote meters that you put on the water tap or what?
Yeah, all our meters are AMR, meaning we drive by in a vehicle. We have to get within a certain range to pick up those meters. But we had a project kick off a couple of years ago where we have a lot of meters in our system that are around 20 years old. There's also a different manufacturer we started out with, which was a Hershey meter. We have roughly 2,000 of those in the system that are failing, or they're about to fail just due to the fact that there's electronic components in them. And so we've initiated a project to replace roughly 2,000 3/4-inch meters, and we estimate at the time around 200 1-inch meters. What we're finding is, particularly down in the Aquadale area back in the 80s and 70s, when a lot of these meters were put in, even before then, they're older type meters that have been covered up. And when we uncover them, when we're getting out there as part of this project, we're discovering a lot more 1-inch than what we'd originally anticipated. And that's why we're trying to get some more 1-inch meters in stock.
So you're able to ride by and without a person actually having to lift the top of a meter and get bit by a snake.
Yes, sir.
You're-
But there's a downside of that too. We're not touching these meters like we need to.
Right.
And so we're aggressively trying to get them uncovered, get them up to grade, putting proper antennas on them so that we do get correct signal. And it's like I said, with the electronics and the age, a lot of these meters are failing, which impacts our revenue. They also slow down over time.
And that saves taxpayers a lot of money on.
Well, it saves the enterprise fund money as
Yeah.
far as our ratepayers go.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Now, these meters that have failed, how long, okay, you say they were older, so
Yes.
it wasn't a malfunction that caused them to fail, or that was just a bad
Well, we
group?
have malfunctions, but just generally due to age and electronics. I mean, you bury a radio in the ground for 15 years, moisture, a lot of things can happen where these meters start to fail. Ideally, we'd like to get to a point where we can change out every meter in our system once every 15 years so that it'll recycle itself and we'll have accurate readings and be able to collect the maximum amount of revenue that we should be collecting.
So 15 years is the lifespan.
That's an ideal lifespan for most utilities.
Thank you.
Wait, I got a question, actually. These older meters that we replace, what do we do with those old meters?
Well, we used to scrap them and take them to the metal yard, but what we have found is that people are paying much more on gov deals. So as we're waiting for enough of them to accumulate, and then I'm going to put them on gov deals because we can get a better price for them on gov deal than we can take them to metal recycling.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
I do have a question too.
Okay.
Now, you said that you thought they were going to be 3/4 and you've got more 1-inch than what you.
Yes, sir. Many years ago, there was very little price
Can we not,
discrepancy.
I guess my
Yes,
question is, can we not put 3/4 into place if they, or do you have
We're
to have-
looking at that, and there are
Reduce
parts to
them.
be able to do that, but, you get into a situation where if someone actually needs that 1-inch, we got to look at how far the house is, but we have ordered some parts to possibly do that, as far as it's about $30 for those parts. So we are looking to try to, if there's a house that's close to the road and it's an old house, it's a 1-inch and the property owner doesn't mind, and I don't think they'll see a noticeable difference, we are looking at those 3/4 by 1-inch adapters where we can use the 1-inch copper setter, put in a 3/4-inch meter. As long as they don't notice it as far as the impacts on their water usage, we're going to definitely try that.
Because most new residential now, typically uses 3/4, isn't it?
Yes, once we implemented the system development fees, the cost on that 1-inch is significantly higher, so we've gotten very little residential 1-inch meter requests just due to the cost.
So even if we do some reduction, do we still need that many?
We're getting commercial taps over in Locust particularly, and a lot of commercial taps, they want those 1-inch meters for irrigation or for actual usage of a restaurant or something like that.
Well, they've probably already paid for those 1-inch taps over the 3/4 anyway, so.
Oh, yes.
Question, Dwayne, and I want to make sure I'm correct in thinking this. The water sewer department operates as a revenue-producing entity, and these water taps, 1-inch water taps, what we approve is being paid for out of revenues, not tax dollars, correct?
That is correct. We are an enterprise fund. We do not take general fund monies to operate. We exist off the ratepayers that pay the monthly bill.
Thank you. And the other question, approximately, what's the cost of a 1-inch meter?
It's approximately $400 for a 1-inch meter. A 2-inch is around a 3/4 is around $265. So there is a increase from a 1-inch to a 3/4, fairly significant.
And hoping life expectancy of 15 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, he's made a presentation. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the expense of the 1-inch meter.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Second by Commissioner Hadley. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carried, 7-0. You're up again for the second part of the budget amendment.
Yes, action item 4411, this is a budget amendment for Stanley County Utilities for the sewer repairs and maintenance. We are seeking a budget amendment to cover expenses for our sewer maintenance repairs in the Stanley County Utilities Fund. The requested budget amendment will recognize $25,000 from the Union County raw water revenue line item with a corresponding increase to the repair and maintenance line item. Expenses for the sewer system repairs primarily are related to the 27 pump stations that we have in the system that for this year we've had above average amount of repairs that had to be done. A good portion of these expenses can be attributed to the aging town of Richfield sewer infrastructure. Stanley County Utilities has been delayed on the Richfield grant project because contracted bids for the project were exorbitantly above the grant amount that was awarded by NCDEQ, and staff has taken on the position that we're going to try to do this work ourselves, but we can't do all of it. We have to subcontract out much of the work, and we're getting very close to the point where we can get that project initiated. Staff has recommended a budget amendment of 2025-57 to enable necessary expenses to be, restocked in that expense line item to help pay for future sewer repairs we'll have in the utilities.
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Wingo?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we move the $25,000 out of the Union County Raw Water Fund to the repair and maintenance sewer system that they're requesting.
Yeah, have a motion. Second.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Mills. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, 7-0.
Dwayne, I do have one quick question.
Yes, sir.
On the, I had a Richfield customer call me the other day about the sewer system, and I meant to call you this week. Have we had some problems with the payment system on the website?
That's something I'll need to speak to customer service about. I was unaware of that, but I can certainly ask them and get back with you.
Okay, I know he said he couldn't get in there and log in to pay it, and it said it's always a pain to do it, so I just
Okay.
wanted
I do know we are getting ready to move or migrate to a new web system, so hopefully many of those hiccups will be fixed with the web upgrade that the county is hoping to do.
Thank you, sir.
But I'll just say, I know that there were some other customers who called in today and said there was an issue with the website this weekend, and people, but Carol's think she's got the flu too. So I've been, went to go get with her today, but she wasn't there, so, hopefully she'll be back tomorrow or, Wednesday, and we'll be able to have a conversation with her. 'Cause and if she's not there tomorrow, I may just talk to Chad and see if there's an IT issue, so, we'll get it.
I got one more? Okay.
There's a motion and a second.
Was that all? Have you got the other part?
He was asking if y'all had approved.
I just want to make sure, I want to make sure you guys, I know there's a motion and a second, I just want to make sure you voted on it.
Oh, we voted on it, yeah.
Okay.
5-7,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, the next action item is 4410, which is a budget amendment for sludge removal at the West Stanley Wastewater Treatment Plant and McCoy Pump Station operations. Stanley County Utilities Department is requesting a budget amendment to cover the remaining fiscal year expenses at the West Stanley Wastewater Treatment Plant and the McCoy Regional Pump Station. The requested budget amendment will allocate $180,000 from retained earnings into the West Stanley account 631-7120-699, which is for other contracts. The current budget forecast for the West Stanley District indicate that final revenues for the 24-25 fiscal year will exceed this budget amendment. Over the past 6 years, sewer flows to the facility have increased by approximately 30% due to development in Locust, Oakboro, and Stanfield. This increase in flow has produced more solids than the wastewater received, which must be retreated and moved from the process. The removal is accomplished by a pump and haul operation and field application on local farms. These costs have increased by about 50% during this same time frame. Staff has increased the budget each year in an attempt to cover these costs, but the concentrations of solid in the wastewater has become more pronounced due predominantly to dry weather flows and the new low water usage plumbing fixtures that are being added as these new developments are occurring primarily in Locust. There is a projected need to complete 2 more scheduled removals of the sludge in the wastewater digester via Synagro before the end of the fiscal year. Our staff is in the process of adding another vendor to provide competitive pricing for future sludge removals, but is waiting for the competitor to obtain permitting for the county's facility. Additionally, existing check valves at the McCoy pump station need to be replaced due to deteriorating age, and on-site rental pumping equipment, which was installed following past pump failures, will need to be extended. To cover these costs, we are requesting a transfer of the funds from retained earnings to the other accounts contract. Staff recommends approval of Budget Amendment 2025-58 for sludge removal and ongoing pump station operations and maintenance at McCoy.
Anyone have any questions?
What's the dollar amount?
For each sludge haul, right now it can range anywhere from 50 to 70, depending on how much they're able to get out of that digester. 1,000, yes, sir. I'm
How
sorry.
many
Trent?
facilities do we have?
We have 2
to choose
wastewater.
from? I'm talking about
Yes.
to choose from, to
Oh.
haul the sludge to.
Yes, sir. Synagro is the only one that's permitted right now. We're trying to get permitted with Bionomics. They have moved into Union County. They're starting to do much of Union County's sludge hauling. But with each situation in each plant, they have to get a permit with the state to do it. They're in the process of getting that, so we will have some competition. Based on preliminary pricing, there's not a lot of difference between them, but at least with 2 competitors, we can let the other one know that there's a person out there that has a permit, and we, hopefully that'll drive it down.
That's a tough situation.
It is. I mean, unfortunately, the size of the plant, we're at a size between 1 million and 5 million. This is the most economical way to dispose of the solids. Once you get up above a 5 million MGD plant, there are processes, but then you have to have more staff in order to man those processes. That could be cheaper at that point, but between that threshold of 1 to 5 GPM, the sludge hauling is the most economical process.
Will Albemarle work with us to dump water in to try to break some of that down? So we don't have to pay for the water coming in to try to,
No, it isn't a question about, they have their own plant and they do sludge hauling or other processes to reduce their solids, but
I'm just talking about trying to break the sludge down with more.
there's
water
really
in the
not a lot
system.
you can do. It's residential sludge. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on in the West Stanley area as far as sewer discharge. Again, low flow toilets is one thing. What I'm also seeing is we have a lot of grinder pumps in that system. What happens is these grinder pumps grind solids down to a level that they pass through the bar screen, then they re-solidify and they get into our system. I think, and whether this has been proven out or not, I also believe there's been a growing increase of nylon hair, which a lot of ladies like to have hair extensions, and that's an ongoing thing that also is that nylon is getting through and then it's binding back together once it gets in there.
Is there anything we could do, like at these grinding stations, to add more water to help the flow and to reduce the solids? Because this is
Well, what happens if we get a particularly heavy rainfall year, which we haven't had for the last couple of years? We're getting more of the real stuff that's coming down through there. We're not getting a lot of dilution with rainwater. The only drawback is when you get these high weather flows or wet years, you'll get more dilution, which means what happens is that sludge gets pushed on. We have washouts at the plant. That sludge will get pushed on through the processes, ultimately end up in the river, and we get a notice of violation when that occurs. So it's pick your poison at this point as far as how to do it. It's just a financial thing that we have to do to get rid of this sludge.
I just want to check, we're not getting as much stormwater?
Over the last couple of years, the flows have gone, they've gone up. 2 years ago, we were at 540 gallons per day. And then last year we were at 620. This year, as of January, which we have to record that every January, we're at 696. So over the last 2 years, the dry weather flows without all that wet weather that comes in during a really wet season has gone up about 23%. But when you go back 3 years, it was up in the 600s, but most of that, or a good portion of that, was inflow and infiltration, which is just raw water runoff that's getting into the system.
You call that I&I?
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions, Mr. Wingo?
Just a comment.
Go ahead and make a comment then.
I am thankful we have profit.
Yes.
We can pay for this thing.
Yes, sir. And I do expect the revenues to exceed this amount. I can't say how much at this point, it's too far out, but just looking at our budgetary projections, we should be well in excess of that by the end of the year.
Okay, anybody else comments or questions? If not, we'll seek approval or denial of budget amendment 2025-58 for sludge removal. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll second that. I don't see how to prove it.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries, 7-0.
Thank you, sir.
Now, Dwayne, one quick question. Now, with the new plant that we're talking about working on, will this continue to be a problem, or will that take us above the 5 million where we got to do something different?
The plant expansion will go to 2.5 MGD. This will be an ongoing issue. What we are doing is repurposing the aeration basin and the old clarifier to just basically more containment. It's kind of acts like a septic tank. The more septic tank and storage you have, the longer duration you have for the solids in there. These are bugs that are hard to digest. So with the more aeration, I hope that it'll get a little bit more efficiency as far as, allowing more time for the bugs to eat the solids that are in there and hopefully reduce the overall amount. I cannot promise that, but that's the intent, is to repurpose that repurpose the aerator and the old clarifier, which, and again, we can better schedule when we do it, but sludge will be and always will be an ongoing process as far as expenses go.
So if we're basically going from $1 million to $2.5 million, we can expect that number to more than double.
No, sir. It'll be based on what the flows are at that time. But yeah, you are correct. Ultimately, when we're at $2.5 million, we'll have more sludge.
Thank you. I just want to talk about that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dwayne. Okay, next on the agenda is a reevaluation presentation by Mr. Clinton Swearinger, Tax Administrator.
Thank you, Chairman Barbie, members of the board. I'm happy to be here with you tonight. Just bear with me a few seconds and let me get this pulled up. All right, can y'all see that on your screen yet? Okay. My name is Clinton Swearingen. I'm the tax administrator here in Stanley County. I brought our revaluation director, Charles Johnson, with me. He can probably stand up here at the end and answer a few questions in greater detail than I can. But I'm here tonight to talk to you about revaluation, what it means and why we do it. I was sitting here thinking right before the meeting started, this will be my 6th revaluation since I've worked here at Stanley County. And Charlie, I think this is your 8th. Me and him were talking the other day, a lot of people only do 3 or 4 in their entire career. And so I almost feel like we're professionals at it at this point. So I do want to talk to you about revaluation, and I've arranged this presentation to basically be questions, because the majority of questions I get about revaluation, I want to put in this presentation so that whoever is watching this tonight or whoever watches it later maybe get some of their concerns answered, and we can go from there. So, the very first question, why do we have to perform revaluations? I get asked this question all the time by family members, at church, wherever I'm at, I get asked this question. And it's not because they're loads of fun or we enjoy doing them so much. It's because North Carolina state law requires it. In 105-286A, that statute requires Stanley County and every county in North Carolina to revalue all properties within the county at least once every 8 years to maintain equitable and uniform property values. Stanley County reassesses property values every 4 years to limit the impact of the revaluation and to more fairly distribute the tax burden. Counties who wait every 8 years usually see very, very drastic changes in their values. And we don't want to do that. We want to keep it as small as an impact as possible. And the other thing about waiting so long is you're not distributing the tax burden fairly. You know, somebody here may have gone up X percent and somebody over here didn't go up as much. But if you wait 8 years, in essence, the people over here is paying more than these people are technically if you're looking at the assessment level. So we do it every 4 years to increase the tax burden and make it more fair for everybody. Second question, what does revaluation mean? It's determining the fair market value of all the properties in Stanley County based on the same date. I've got that word fair market value underlined because that's important. The county assessor must appraise all real property at its fair market value as defined in NCGS 105-283. So once again, statute tells us we have to revalue property at fair market value. Here is the textbook definition of fair market value. The price estimated in terms of money at which the property would change hands between a willing and financially able buyer and a willing seller, neither being under any compulsion to buy or sell, and both having reasonable knowledge of all the uses to which the property is adapted and for which it is capable of being used. So that long definition that's in the textbook basically sums up to, in other words, how much could the owner expect to receive for the property if it was sold on a certain date? And that date is January 1st of 2025. Fair market value is often referred to as an arm's length transaction. It can't be family members. We get that argument a lot where maybe mama or daddy or grandma and grandpa passed away and the two siblings got the property. And then a child moves in and they only pay for half of it since mama or daddy already own half. That's not an arm's length transaction. That's not a sale we're going to look at. It's not something we're going to call a qualified sale. Something else in the last probably 5 to 10 years that's become very prominent and frequent is LLC sales, where you have this LLC selling to another LLC. But once we dig into the Secretary of State's information on business searches, we find that it's actually a subsidy of that company. So they're trying to go in and say we got a cheaper price for this and pay less taxes, but we research it and we find it out and say, no, it's not. It's not an arm's length transaction because this LLC was actually part of the other LLC. So in order for it to be a arm's length transaction or fair market value, we're looking to see exactly what changes are there. So our office, the tax office, sets property values to reflect current fair market value for all properties in Stanley County as of January 1st, 2025. Charlie and his staff gather sales data using the help of appraisal specialists to provide data that is not readily available to the tax office. Those appraisal specialists are realtors and MLS sales that we know are arm's length transactions that we can see, and we know exactly what the square footage was, where the house was at, how much land was with it, and what it sold for. This next slide is probably the most telling slide of everything I'm going to show you tonight. And it's the 2024 versus the 2020, versus the 2024 MLS sales data for Stanley County residential property. So you'll see the bar chart there for 2020. And in 2020, there were 794 sales of residential property that closed between January 1st of 2020 and December 31st of 2020, which are the main sales that we looked at for the 2021 reval. The average sales price was $215,477. Fast forward 4 years to 2024, the exact same data, January to December of 24. Instead of 794 sales, there's 806 sales. And the average price is now $337,972, which is a 56% increase in a 4-year time frame. Drastic changes in the market in the last 4 years. Those numbers simply do not lie. That's what the market is doing right now. I was so glad it came in today. About 2 weeks ago, the assessors listserv, where all 100 county assessors talk to each other through email, they put out a 2025 revaluation survey and wanted to know what the average increase was for each county, what it was going to be for the revaluation if it was January 1st, 2025. And I got the numbers today about 3 o'clock. And the 21 counties out of 100 that have revals this year, the average increase on those 21 counties was 52%. So we are not alone in this drastic change in the market in the last 4 years. Another very important question, will the revaluation change my property value? For most properties in the county, the answer is yes, it will create a change, but not all properties will change at the same percentage. Increases or decreases will change by the neighborhood and the property type, and these changes can be impacted by market forces. And areas of the county experiencing high growth could see values increase more than with areas of slower growth. So for example, we all know that Baden is not growing at the same rate of Locust. Okay, so there's going to be a difference there in the increases. Different areas, different growths. And although the value of your property does affect your share of taxes, it's only half of the equation needed to calculate your tax bill. The property tax rate is the other half of that equation that determines the amount of taxes that you pay. The current tax rate for Stanley County is 61 cents, and all the municipalities, all 10 municipalities and all 14 fire districts also have their own rates. I'm not going to go over all those rates tonight with y'all, but the rate sheet for the county, the municipalities, and all the fire districts is on the tax webpage, and it's the 2024 numbers that are current. So during the last revaluation in 2021, Stanley County lowered its property tax rate from 67 cents per $100 of value to 61 cents per $100 of value. So we had a reval in 2017, stayed the same at 67 cents, and then for 2021, we dipped down to 61 cents, which was revenue, actually a little bit below revenue neutral, if I remember correctly.
It was like 61, 17,
Yeah.
or 18 was revenue neutral.
Yeah, so it was actually a little bit less than revenue neutral. And tax offices like round numbers. We don't like tax rates when it's 0.6117. That makes it much harder for us to do our job and explain things to everybody. If it's a whole penny or half a penny or a quarter of a penny, it's a lot simpler to explain. So the Stanley County property tax rates determined by the budgetary needs to run Stanley County government. Municipalities and fire districts also collect property taxes based on their unique needs. So maybe the towns need new lights on their streets. Maybe the fire districts need new fire trucks or new bases. Everybody has their needs that they want to meet. Maybe their wants, maybe their needs, but it's up to their governing bodies to decide, and this board to decide what you want to supply Stanley County with and how much money you need to do that. That's the whole purpose. I give Andy the base estimates, usually the third week in April, and that's what he knows the value he's going to have to come up with the tax rate to recommend to this board to fund everything that we need to fund for Stanley County. Number one question I get asked right here: will the revaluation make my property tax bill higher? And the answer to that question at this point in time is unknown. And it's unknown because the tax rate will not be set until Stanley County Commissioners and all the town councils set their budgets for fiscal year 25-26 and approve their rates usually sometime in June. So let's have an example of a tax bill. Let's assume that right now for 2024, which we just finished, your tax value of your home and land is $100,000. And right now the rate is 61 cents. So you're taking that 100,000, you divide it by 100, gives you 1,000, times that tax rate of 61 cents, and you're paying $610 a year in taxes. Just Stanley County taxes. If you're in the city, you're paying another rate. If you're whatever fire district you're in, you're paying that rate also, and it all gets added together. But I'm just focusing on one rate here at a time to try to make it simple. So that's current. That's what's happening now. Let's look at a proposed or a potential. So in this scenario, let's say the revaluation happens and your house and land goes from $100,000 to $140,000, which is a 40% increase. And I picked that number because that's about the average increase that we're going to see in Stanley County with this revaluation, which trends right along with the numbers that I provided from all the other counties in the state and with the MLS data that I showed you earlier, actually less than that MLS data. So with 40% being the average, there's going to be some people who go up 20%. There's going to be some areas that might go up 60 or 70%, depending on where it's at. So I use 40% here as a hypothetical and as the average. So that number circling there could be less, could be more. Same math, 140,000 divided by 100 is 1,400. And then I put a tax rate of 50 cents. And I want to stress that is a possible tax rate. I'm not saying that's going to be the tax rate. I have no idea what this board will decide. I'm not even sure at this point what revenue neutral is. Okay? I've got a good idea that I feel like revenue neutral is probably going to be somewhere between 45 and 55. But I don't know that, which is why I picked 50. Y'all may settle at 52 cents. You may settle at 50 cents. It may be 55. I'm not sure. But at this scenario, the new tax bill would be $700 instead of $610. So what I want everybody watching this presentation or listening to it is to understand is just because your value goes up 40% does not mean that you're going to get a 40% increase in your tax bill. In this scenario, your tax bill is going up 14%. Okay? Yes, you got a 40% increase in value, but you only got a 14% increase in taxes. So, let's look at another scenario. This time you only got a 30% increase. So your house and land's at $130,000. Tax rate still at 50 cents as a possible rate. Now you're only paying $650 a year in taxes, which is a 6% increase. So once again, yeah, I got a 30% increase in my value, but I only got a 6% increase in the taxes I pay. And you can see how if you lower that rate, or if you only went up 20%, In this scenario, if you went up 20% and the rate's 50 cents, you actually pay less in 2025 than you paid in 2024. So there's a lot of variables in there to look at, and that could be a possibility. But I've made these scenarios because I just want the average citizen to understand how the tax bill works and how it's calculated. Why can't we use other revenue sources? Why can't we just use some money somewhere else to pay for this, right? Property taxes are the primary revenue source for local governments in North Carolina. Cities and counties, we don't collect income taxes, and we can't implement additional sales taxes without approval from the General Assembly. In Stanley County, property taxes make up 50% of the county's revenue. 50%. So, if you did away with property taxes, you do away with half of the county's revenue. You have 50% less sheriff's deputies. You have 50% less 911 dispatchers. You have 50% less ambulances on the road. You have 50% less school funds. You have 50% less funds for Stanley Community College. And the list can go on and on and on and on and on. So property taxes are an important part of Stanley County revenue. When will I receive my revaluation notice? As of right now, the Stanley County Tax Office anticipates sending these notices the week of March 17th through the 21st. I get a lot of questions about why is it that late and not a little bit earlier. I have a real problem. Some of the counties in the state mail out their revaluation notices in December. And I have a problem with that because I'm supposed to analyze every sale through December 31st of up to that point. So if I send them out in December, I haven't really looked at all the sales that are going through December. So we analyze all the sales, and that pushes us out into the month of January, and then we have to do all the checking in the system and everything that goes along with that. So as of right now, we anticipate the week of March 17th through the 21st. Once you get your notice in the mail, and you don't like it, you think it's wrong, how can I appeal my value if I disagree? If you feel your property is improperly assessed, this notice that we send you will include instructions on how to appeal and what to do. Everyone will have the chance to appeal if they choose to. Now, given the number of parcels in Stanley County, there's about 42,000 of them right now, with probably 22,000 of them having improvements on it, which could be a house, a business, a garage, something like that. That's what we call an improvement. Mistakes can be made. We're not perfect. We're human. Mistakes can be made. If you think there's a mistake, please contact us. Let us know. You know your property better than we do. You know your house much better than we do. But the appeal process will begin with an informal review with a certified Stanley County appraiser. And what that means is once you get your notice in the mail, you'll have a couple of options to appeal. You can always write in an appeal and mail it in that way. But what we really like is we like to give good customer service to the people of Stanley County. So we want you to call and make an appointment to come see us and sit down face to face with one of our certified appraisers and talk about what's wrong. Talk about why you disagree with the value. Talk to you why we came up with the value that we have, and then try to hash it out and have an informal appeal and a hearing there in the office if at all possible. But I want to note that it is the property owner's burden of proof to prove to us that our value is wrong. That's state statute, that the tax office is considered correct until proven wrong. So, I want to stress this point. The following reasons for lowering value are not valid points. Because every reval, somebody appeals and they come in and they say these two phrases. It's too high, or my value went up 40% or 30% or 50% or whatever number it is. That's what they say. Those arguments do not prove value. They don't use market analysis. They don't use sales. They don't use the condition of the property to prove a point. Today I was thinking the best way I could explain this is the price of eggs right now. They're ridiculously high, right? They've gone up, 100%, 200% in some places. If you walk into Food Line or Walmart tomorrow and you get to the egg section and you scream out, "These are too high. They've gone up 40 or 50% or 100%. Does that change the price of those eggs? It does not. You're either going to buy them or you're not. And the same thing with the real estate market right now. These are the sales that we have that prove the value, and that's what we're going by. So when you come into the office and say these things, it's not going to do you much good to complain without having some facts or some proof to go with it. So after you have that informal review or face-to-face meeting, or if you choose to write it in, that's fine too. After you have that appeal, you'll receive a notice from us telling you what our decision is. And that decision could be a decrease in value, it could be an increase in value, or it could be a no change. Now, a lot of people see that and say, an increase in value? Why would somebody come in and appeal and have an increase in value? Well, we have honest people in Stanley County. And maybe they've built an outbuilding that we didn't know about, and they looked at their card and they wanted to come in and tell us about it. So I put that in there because we do have increases sometimes. So once you get that decision from my office of our informal appeal, if you're satisfied with that, there's nothing else for you to do. That's the end of it, and that's what your July/August of 2025 tax bill will be based off of. Can I appeal if I disagree with my informal hearing decision? Absolutely. If you come and talk to my staff in my office and you're still not happy, you can go before the Stanley County Board of Equalization and Review. The Stanley County Board of E&R, which is what we always refer to it as, is the 5-member board appointed by this board to serve in special session to hear appeals between the taxpayer and the Stanley County Tax Office. So each side presents their case for value before this board, kind of like court, and then the Board of E&R makes a decision. So the Board of E&R actually meets in this room, and they actually sit where you guys are sitting, and the taxpayer will come up to this podium and give their presentation, and then the tax office will give their presentation, and then the board decides what they want to do. So once again, once that board hears your case, it could be a decrease, it could be an increase, it could be a no change. And if you're satisfied then with what the Board of E&R says, there's nothing else for you to do. It's done, and that's what your 2025 value will be based off of. Can I appeal if I disagree with the Board of E&R? The answer is yes. Once you've received your formal appeal notice or of decision, you may request an appeal with North Carolina Property Tax Commission in Raleigh. North Carolina Property Tax Commission is a 5-member board appointed by North Carolina Governor and the North Carolina General Assembly to hear appeals between the taxpayer and the Stanley County Tax Office. You must have a hearing with the Stanley County Board of E&R before you can appeal to the Property Tax Commission. I should have underlined that. I apologize I didn't. But a lot of times we get people who say, I just want to skip the Board of E&R. I want to go straight to the Property Tax Commission. Well, by statute, you can't do that. You actually have to include a notice of decision from the Board of E&R with your Property Tax Commission appeal application. The Property Tax Commission operates exactly like a courtroom. Businesses, LLC, corporations, they are all required to have legal representation before the Property Tax Commission. So if you're an LLC, you can't go up there pro se by yourself. You have to have an attorney represent you. We're fortunate when we do have to go. Ms. Furr always goes with me, and that's helpful and wonderful. So after your appeal to the Property Tax Commission, they rule right there in front of you. They go into closed session and discuss it, and then they come back out and read their ruling, and that's the end of it. And after that's over, you still may appeal. You can appeal to the North Carolina Court of Appeals and even to the North Carolina Supreme Court, but those cases are very rare, very, very rare. I think in the 23 years I've been here, we've had one go to the Court of Appeals, and it didn't make it past that. It stayed there. So what is the goal of revaluation? It's to create an equitable way to determine property values so all residents pay their fair share of taxes. It is our goal at the Stanley County Tax Office to treat every citizen fairly and show them great customer service throughout the whole process. This includes citizens who want to appeal or citizens who just have questions. Because a lot of times people get that notice and they're confused or they just have questions. They don't necessarily want to appeal, they just want to have some questions answered. And we're happy to talk to them and answer those questions. So we have established a dedicated revaluation phone line for questions and appeal appointments. So if you call that number, you're going to talk to a live person, not a robot. And they're going to try to answer your questions if you have questions. And then if you want to appeal, they're going to line up your appeal process for you and give you a date and time to show up and appeal face-to-face. If you have a written appeal, you can mail them to the Stanley County Tax Administration, 201 South 2nd Street. Attention, 2025 revaluation appeal. And I'll make sure I put every one of them in Charlie's mailbox. So that's a brief revaluation presentation. I hope you learned something. I hope maybe the citizens of Stanley County learned something, and I'll try to get this on the website tomorrow for anybody that would like to watch it. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that y'all have about all that talking I just did.
Clinton, thank you,
Yes, sir.
because I know that we'll probably have to help you answer a lot of these questions. So that'll help.
Yep.
We don't all have Charlie to follow us around and help us.
Clinton can hear me or not, but if we could get a copy of this presentation, it was a great presentation, and it might help us to, let some of our citizens know, but it was a great presentation, but if we can get a copy, I'd certainly appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I'll be happy to.
He's nodding his head. Yeah, he'll get us a copy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
And as we go forward this and the notices go out, if y'all have questions, please reach out to me or Charlie, and we'll be happy to work with you any way we can. We're not alone in this endeavor. Like I say, every county in the state is going through this same situation.
Clinton, who's the members of the ENR?
The chairperson is Amanda Cody. The vice chair is Garrett Allen. H.D. Eford Jr., Jim Starnes, and Michael Hatley.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Email, I know in some of the counties like Union and Cabarrus, you can't get an appointment. You have to send everything in by email because, when you appeal. So you guys actually sit down, if they want that.
If they
want
that.
to send it in, they can.
That's fine.
But you are customer service friendly, and you would really like a face-to-face when someone has an appeal on that.
It is fantastic when somebody comes in and shows us pictures of an interior of a house that we can't see from, the road, or when we go by and look at all this, because we don't get inside every house. And so if they bring pictures and documentation for us, that makes our job easy to work with them. But if you just show up and say this is too high, there's not a whole lot we can do to help you. But we do want to give good customer service, and I know with the whole Mecklenburg County reval a few years ago, Charlie can attest, it was just a disaster. And I told Charlie, I said, thank goodness we're not like that. And we try to, help people and work with them and talk to them and not just give them a robot.
I was amazed. I went up today and actually saw pictures of some of our farm. They have pictures all the way back to the 90s showing what your house looked like from the back, from the side. And I was thinking, okay, we used to have a dog that was pretty ferocious, but they have pictures that's amazing. It's not just an aerial photograph.
No.
It's close-up pictures, and he's really, I was amazed at that. I don't know who, someone, does the legwork to get out.
Yeah.
And this is not just a fly-by-night say, well, we think, your house has gone up in value this much. Union County I found out it's close to 69%. Cabarrus County is 65% on the increase. But last thing, I'm going to tell you, he has a can of Hot Shot beside of his window. Y'all might not want to hear this. But I asked him, I said, what's the Hot Shot for? And he said, well, sometimes the windows in his office will not close in a courthouse. And I mean, you can't latch them. They open. It was a little bit cold in his room. And the thing that I remember coming out, he said, Billy, don't worry about my windows. He said, we just want people to know that they're getting an honest evaluation. and I'll go without windows. Y'all just do what y'all got to do. And I appreciate, this is a good man. I mean, I really,
I appreciate that, Billy. I appreciate that. But yeah, we're very proud of our picture database. You know, I was a real property appraiser for 11 years before I became tax administrator, so I had a big part in making those pictures and visiting all those properties. And so it's probably unparalleled in the state for what we have. But yeah, I mean, it goes all the way back to '01, and so it's pretty neat to be able to look at your house and say, oh, look how it's changed over the last 20 years. And so when people come into the office, we share those pictures with them. And, you know, so when they come in and say, well, my house is terrible, it looks bad. And, well, it looks great in this picture that we made 6 months ago. Not that we're just being truthful with them. So, other questions?
Anything else? Thank y'all.
All right, thank you, board.
Appreciate it, Quentin. Appreciate it, Charlie. All right. 911 EOCEM Facility Site Development Budget Amendment. Presenter, Andy Lucas.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. We actually had a conversation about this in the work session a couple weeks ago. This is the county received the guaranteed maximum price for the site development for Phase 2 of the North Carolina Emergency Training Center from Barnhill Construction, which includes the county's prorated share for the 911 EOC-EM facilities and warehouse facilities. And our portion will not exceed $3.25 million. This will include all grading for the county facilities and the county's prorated share of all stormwater infrastructure, on-site water and sewer installation, as well as the ingress and egress access roads, curb and gutter, sidewalks, paving of all parking lots, etc. It's recommended the county use its cash reserves from the general fund for this portion of the county's specific capital improvement project. An additional budget or project budget amendments will be required to recognize loan proceeds and more general fund reserves to cover the cost of the actual facility and the county's prorated share of the 911 or the warehouse facility that we're going to have on the site, which we'll share with the Office of State Fire Marshal. But this will get Barnhill started with all the site work, and then in the meantime, we'll be going down the parallel path of working to figure out how much reserves, the grant money we got from 911 board, the grant money we got from the Office of Management and Budget, and then what the balance is, so we can put an RFP out to the bank so we can get financing for to cover the rest of the facility. And so we'll be working on that while they get started on the site work, and then so that will be coming back before you here in the near future. I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Anybody got any questions, Mr. Lucas? And you need for us to take a vote on this tonight?
Yeah, to approve the budget amendment so we can get the site work started. Because I'll have to amend the contract with Barnhill.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the budget amendment of $3.25 million from the general fund to the 911 center.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Second from Commissioner Mills. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carried, 7-0.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. I hope everybody's had a chance to look it over, look at it. And like to see what you think. We have anybody make a motion for the consent agenda? A motion by Commissioner Lawhon. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Crump. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, 7-0. Now we come down to board comments, and I'll start on my right down here with Commissioner Crump. Mr. Hatley. Mr. King.
I just want to thank Clinton for coming out tonight and putting on this presentation. This answers a lot of questions for a lot of citizens. I think this board's gonna have a lot of soul searching to do, to, some tough decisions to make to get back to revenue neutral, or are we gonna plan for the future a little bit? And this is gonna be the chance that this is gonna be one of the times that I think this board's gonna really struggle just to make a decision, because it's one of those things that you don't wanna have to do, but sometimes you have to. So, thank you, Clint, for coming out and presenting this, and thank you for everything tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner King. Commissioner Eford, you got anything you want to say?
No, sir, I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman. I'll see everyone Friday.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Okay, down to Commissioner Mills. You got anything?
It looks like we might get some weather tomorrow, possible. But I still 42,000 parcels in Stanley County of land, and these guys go out and every single one. I was amazed at that they go out, and it's not just, a rough picture at the road. I know a lot of people's been complaining on Facebook about somebody riding by their house real slow and taking pictures. Well, that's not. It's not these guys. They get out and walk and actually take the pictures. And the thing you said about not all property is going to be 40%. There's going to be some, and my understanding was that locusts, there's a lot of demand for locusts right now, and that they could be values higher at one place other than the other. There was $1.5 billion of property in the city of Albemarle. There's $7.4 billion, this is total property value, in the county. If there's 1 penny decrease in the tax rate, say you go down to 60 cents, that's about $750,000. And as we go into things, I know there's a lot, it's like you said, if we cut the rate, that means that's 50% more schools less that our children don't have. And that's the only way we can fund things. And there's not a person up here that doesn't want, and I do. Every vehicle I have has got 300,000 miles on it. So I can't afford higher taxes. So as this comes out, and I know, Clinton doesn't either. People see us on the street and say, "You better not let my taxes go." I'm not. We're going to do everything we can to make people, especially people that's working every day, to make ends meet. My daughter said that her electric bill was $500 this past month, her electric bill. And she's on, they can't afford that. So anyway, I'm done.
Commissioner Law?
Yes, I do. I want to update new home permits through January 2025. This is for the month of January. New home building permits, total 34, which is a decrease of 25 or 42% from January of 24. The permits from January, January, permit value was $8,106,000. That's a decrease of $682,000 or 8% from January of 24. And there's still building going on. It had slowed down somewhat, but it's still happening in Stanley County. And these are new tax dollars when the house is built that the county will receive after it's complete. But to break even on our services, I believe a house needs to be valued at $341,000. Is that correct, Andy?
Very close.
Very close, yeah. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Law. As everybody knows, I guess I'm the penny pincher up here. I hate increases in taxes of any kind, but I also know we got to function as a county. So, but I just don't want to see the older people or the people that maybe can't afford their property taxes be displaced with someone that can make the taxes, which is probably going to be inevitable. But anyway, I hope things turn out good on it, and I appreciate Clinton you working on all this for us. So And with having said that, it's the end of our meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Recess. Or are we going to recess? We'll recess to our meeting on February 21st, Friday. I have a motion to recess? Oh, second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried.